The following video will be building off my review of the first Tomb Raider. I would recommend watching that video first before proceeding. Tomb Raider 2 was released in 1997 for the PlayStation, just one short year after its predecessor. Its release would mark a time when the franchise became exclusive to the Sony line of consoles into the year 2000. While Sega and Nintendo couldn't get their hands on the games for their own systems, a Windows version released alongside the PlayStation version. This review will be looking at the PC version of the game. I do own the original PSX version, but it won't be factored into this review save to point out a few differences here and there. The game had entered its conceptual stages somewhere along Tomb Raider's development cycle. The dev team were full of suggestions and ideas, some that made it into the final version of Tomb Raider, and some that had to be stowed away until its sequel. By the time the second game had begun its development cycle, the dev team had doubled in size and swapped around its membership. Lara's original creator, Toby Gard, left ship and was replaced with Stuart Atkinson. He implemented some of the game's cosmetic changes, such as Lara's changing wardrobe, something that would be implemented into every sequel to follow. Her clothes weren't the only things being changed around for the sequel. Lara's voice actress, Shelley Blond, was replaced by Judith Gibbons, the end result being that Lara sounds more like a femme fatale this time around.
So indulge me about the dagger. I'd be indebted with your life.
The new development team for the second game decided early on that the sequel would utilize the same engine as its predecessor. Rather than start from scratch, things would only be tweaked around. In tandem with this decision was the creation of a new level editing system, which allowed the team to develop and playtest creations on the fly. The end result of this larger dev team working with a familiar engine, hashing out bugs as they went along, was a far more polished product. We can take a look at some of the game's improvements in Lara's home, which makes its return here. The biggest improvement is Lara herself. Her model boasts a higher polygon count, smoothing out her body shape. There's some more shading detail, and her ponytail, which was conspicuously absent in the previous game, has been implemented here. She retains the tank controls from the previous game, but the tweaks made to the engine have made navigating Lara a far less digital experience. The original PSX version still utilized the digital pad for movement since the DualShock one hadn't been implemented. But despite this, Lara seems far more willing to maneuver around in a circle without stuttering. Since I'm using the PC version here, I have the added benefit of full analog control this time around. And I have to say, moving around the environment is immensely more satisfying. Lara's response time to the jump command has also been improved somewhat. It's still far too laggy, but the increased response time makes performing a quick succession of jumps a more promising endeavor than it ever was in the previous game. She doesn't have any completely new movement tricks up her sleeve, but she can now perform the 180 roll maneuver in the air and underwater. It seems like a no-brainer in hindsight, and it facilitates some efficient movement around the environment, as well as smoothing out the game's combat. Lara's weapon count has also risen from 4 to 7, with each new weapon in the arsenal serving a unique combat function. She retains her trademark pistols, the shotgun is a short-range powerhouse, the magnums, now called automatic pistols, serve as a beefed-up version of the standard handguns, the Uzis outclass the auto pistols but consume more ammo, the M16s outclasses the Uzis but can't be used as fluidly, making it ideal in stationary situations, the grenade launcher fucks everything up but fires slow rounds, and the harpoon gun brings underwater combat to the table. Ammunition for the weapons is also balanced much better. If Lara doesn't hunt down all the secrets in each stage, she's unlikely to find herself in situations like the first game where she could liberally use a power weapon without running dry. Flares also make their debut into Lara's arsenal in order to take advantage of the new dynamic lighting system. This time around, sources such as gun muzzle flash, torches, and flares affect the environment around Lara. The inclusion makes for some nice visual touches, but the flares are rarely required in gameplay since the dark areas that utilize them are usually brief in scope. The most interesting use of the flares is in the Ice Palace, where Lara needs to throw them down a seemingly bottomless pit in order to find a safe way to descend. Save this instance, they're not really required to complete the game. The pause menu also has better presentation, using a textured background as opposed to the plain black window. The PC version strangely lacks the background animation present in the PSX version, but allows the use of button hotkeys, entirely eliminating the need to open the pause menu in the first place. Lara can swap between weapons and access health packs on the fly, creating a far smoother gaming experience. To put into perspective just how significantly these changes improved the gameplay, I went from cautiously lining up jumps to attempting to speedrun every single level without saving. Tomb Raider 2 adds more time platform challenges to traversal, but Lara's improved controls make them a far more enjoyable endeavor thanks to the slight control tweaks. New players can come to grips with this in the improved obstacle course in the backyard. They can practice basic jumps as well as jumping in quick succession, get a grip on the swimming mechanics and interactable platforming tools, get a feel for Lara's movement, and do all of it while feeling the pressure of a clock. The combat elements are still absent in this tutorial stage, however, and it's a shame they still haven't found a safe way to let Lara play around with the pistols in this relaxed environment. There's slightly more things to do here, such as explore the house and run through the maze to get to a treasure room, but the stage doesn't transition as nicely into the main gameplay segment as it did before, even if it was only just a line of dialogue. The story this time around is a little larger in scale, beginning with a war in ancient China. An army commanding a dragon is battling against some Tibetan monks for some reason. After losing a good chunk of their forces, an injured monk removes a dagger from the dragon's belly, effectively killing it. Basically, this just highlights some of the history for the new artifact of Lara's interest, the Dagger of Xian. Opposing her treasure hunt this time is the Venetian Mafia, headed by Marco Bartoli, though it's probably more correct to call him a cult. We're not exactly told how Lara heard about the dagger. All we know is that it's a rare artifact she wants. And you know what? That's perfectly fine. Lara Croft is just kind of this rich asshole that gets in everyone's way for her own personal gain. Saving the planet from devastation is just kind of a side effect. Stage 1 kicks off with Lara landing at the base of the Great Wall of China where her research has led her. Like its predecessor, this is utilized as a second tutorial stage, being fairly linear with not much room to venture off track. Unlike its predecessor, the traversal here is far more punishing. There's room to fall to your death, lethal traps are introduced, and time challenges, something not seen until the middle of the first game, make up the second half of the stage. To top it off, a player may find a boss encounter with a T-Rex, which could potentially result in a one-hit kill. The player isn't likely to get lost, but the level of difficulty starts considerably higher than the previous title, and I think this is likely due to Lara's vast control improvements. The way things are laid out has a much greater degree of care and thought put into it. Things aren't haphazardly placed around to create something visually interesting. Instead, things are laid out to best suit Lara's movement scheme, creating a much better sense of momentum and pacing. This vast improvement in level design is because the team could playtest levels as they were in development. I think this is also why the sprawling tombs of the first game are swapped in favor of more focused linear challenges with a greater emphasis on progression. There's still room to get lost in the later stages, but definitely not to the same degree as the first game. The move to more linear stage design isn't inherently better or worse, but I have to say it meshes very well with the improved stage design. You feel like you're constantly on the move, and there's some instances where you can feel like a cool gym to show off with lots of cash and sex appeal. The stage secrets have also changed from being well-hidden ammo and health pickups to dragon statues. Each stage contains a stone, jade, and gold dragon hidden somewhere in the stage to incentivize exploring. Grabbing all three results in getting bonus health and power weapon ammunition. Continuing to do this throughout the game will put Lara at an ammo count far higher than she would be otherwise. This is also a nice way to clearly inform the player if they were thorough in their tomb raiding, since they know exactly how many secrets there are to find in each stage. After Lara ziplines over a chasm like an action hero, she finds the locked door from the earlier cutscene. She's assaulted by this cultist and decides to confront their leader in Venice after interrogating him. This brings us to Venice, a welcome change in scenery from the ancient tombs and catacombs. Like the Great Wall, this stage is very focused, with a clear order of events to perform before exiting the stage. This is also where we'll get introduced to the game's heightened combat. Lara's weapon count has jumped, but so has the number of enemies that appear. The majority of these enemies has shifted from the various kinds of wildlife to armed humans. Thankfully this time around, Lara is given plenty of space to deal with the threats. It's entirely possible to run through Tomb Raider 2 with nothing but the base pistols, but the power weapons go a great way towards alleviating stress. Here, Lara can grab the automatic pistols, something she'll be prepared to use immediately if she was thorough in the Great Wall. Certain enemies will drop ammunition for them as well, so the player doesn't really need to be stingy with their ammo. Venice also introduces the drivable vehicles, this time taking the form of a boat Lara can steer around the stream. Several puzzles involve utilizing the vehicle, but it's satisfying enough driving around on the thing. You can actually just cheese out a section of the puzzles on this stage if you've mastered driving the thing well enough. If not, you need to hop off the boat a few times to create a new path for Lara to drive through. Bartoli's hideout is another focused platforming stage with a much higher emphasis on combat than Venice. Lara is essentially just storming in and gunning everyone down that's in her way. I don't know what happened between Tomb Raider and Tomb Raider 2, but Lara's fuck seems significantly lower than the first game. Entire mafia organization? Okay, I'll just show myself in the front door. Shoot you, blow your shit up, shoot you, shoot your fucking dog, take your shit. Just zero regard for possible repercussions. This stage also begins stressing a watchful eye. I was quite pleased in the first game at just how many ways the team found to make Lara's traversal unique. You'd be forgiven if you thought they'd run out of tricks at this point. But the ways the level design continued to innovate Lara's traversal, given that she'd only been given 2 new maneuvers, is quite inspired. Things like placing a ladder at her peak jump height and requiring her to flip off slidable surfaces after a shimmy force you to rethink how you can get around the environment. It's not always going to be a straightforward gap that needs crossing. This stage also reintroduces some PS1 jank. Basically, after entering this room and gunning down another victim, you need to find a way to push forward. Unless this bookcase texture screams, "You can totally climb on me," to you, then you're gonna have a bad time trying to advance forward. I like the idea that Lara is smart enough to use a bookcase to advance herself where other games wouldn't let you do that, but the way it's textured, there's just nothing here to tell you that it's a climbable surface. I only figured this out by chance because I was trying to jump to the surface above. I guess this means that the level design hinted towards it, but I wouldn't be surprised if players hit a brick wall here. Anyway, after blowing up their shitty building, Lara enters the Opera House. The Opera House is one of my favorite stages in any Tomb Raider, purely for the atmosphere. Where the first game focused on using ancient ruins as the primary focus for tombs, this game takes a more modern approach to the concept. An abandoned opera house under construction is a great place for Lara's tomb raiding shenanigans. The stage starts with some focused platforming, but then opens up once the player enters the main house. If I had to guess, I would say this is where players may find themselves getting a bit lost. Let's just say as a result of a certain person roaming around the area aimlessly for like 30 minutes, this certain person has found their own way to basically cheese out the entirety of this section of the level. Basically, Lara can curve her jump around this section here, skipping the entire stage. If you're not concerning yourself with finding the game's secrets, then this path can save you a good 20 minutes. That's not in the tomb raiding spirit, however, so I will show the stage properly. The design of the main hall is very tightly designed. Once you find that first switch in the back of the center stage, the level design will point you where you need to be, actually making it fairly hard to get lost. You'll be looped from the stage, to the 3rd floor, to the basement, to the air vents, back to the 2nd floor. Now I know I said Bartoli's hideout introduced some PS1 jank, but these air vents. Look at this shit right here. The full height of Lara's jump doesn't go over these vent fans. If you try to walk up to the edge to pull yourself up, the fans kill you. Now look at this, look at this. Look at how you're supposed to advance. Duh, idiot. After the vents, we come upon our old friend, the block puzzles. Lara still drags these blocks like a slow fuckface, so I fail to see why you'd want to utilize these things in any way, unless the issue was corrected. Lara needs to push one block out of her room so she can push another on top of it, so she can jump out of the area. The pacing up until this point was fine. Why not just have her jump back up? Simple as that. Why do I need these fucking blocks? After heading back out into the main room, a few more combat sections stand between her and the back room. This houses a fight with a mini-boss, a steroid gun-slinging pistol man who will consume quite a bit of your ammo. The reward? A grenade launcher. Actually, very useful. That is, until you complete the stage, and then find all your weapons have been stolen. So you don't even get to use the thing that you just got. And now you have far less ammo than you normally would. Oh, and you just find the grenade launcher a couple stages later anyway, along with your other stolen weapons. If you're dense, I'm trying to say this fight has no benefit, and you should just skip it if you can manage it. The offshore rig has Lara running naked for a little while until she comes across her pistols on the plane. To get there, you're supposed to lead a gunman up to some windows so he can shoot them open, but I prefer to just roll through the glass. Lara doesn't have enough fucks to respect proper physics. Now armed, Lara can make her way through the area, steadily gathering her arsenal back. This stage returns to focus linear challenges in contrast to the Opera House's sprawling area. The following stage, the diving area, really just feels like an extension of the rig. These should just both be considered the same stage, but it was likely split due to hardware limitations. Lara essentially pushes forward, finds her shit, and gets her first peek into the underwater combat and the harpoon gun. The harpoon gun is easily the most useless weapon in Tomb Raider 2. Lara can outswim everything, and I can only recount 2 moments, one in the mid-game and one in the very late game, where I actually opted to fight an enemy underwater. It's much easier to just press on ahead 95% of the time. The mistake was rarely asking Lara to perform certain actions underwater, while also occupying the space with an enemy she can't easily escape. If Lara did need to flip a switch or pull a lever underwater, like in this sequence here, then she always had the option to just swim away from the enemy if they got too close. This is only rectified in the very late game, where you're actually trapped in the space with an underwater enemy. Even though the underwater combat is entirely negligible, here the above ground combat introduces the flamethrower enemies. If you are so much as touched by fire, you can essentially consider yourself dead unless you want to deplete health packs as you run to a water source. They're very punishing enemies and create very tense situations, especially when you get locked in a small room with one. There's always enough space to deal with them, but just knowing your game's over after one wrong move doesn't make things easy on you. There's some nice platforming sequences like needing to backward slide down a shaft in order to safely drop down to this middle section. If you didn't know you needed to slide backwards, it's actually possible to safely land in this middle section with a forward slide, given you had the reaction time to jump immediately after falling off the shaft. There's no wrong way to get here, and forget Snake Eater. This is the original long ladder climbing scene. After Lara saves a wounded Tibetan monk by being a dick and throwing her shit at him, she swaps outfits and hitchhikes to the bottom of the sea with a submarine, with no diving equipment whatsoever. Literally just heads to the ocean floor. No oxygen. Like, what the fuck is your plan? Did you know there was a ship full of air at the ocean floor? Seriously. Lara, just one. Please just give one fuck, at least for your own well-being. 40 Fathoms is initially just stupid. You start the stage completely submerged, and if you haven't been developing your watchful eye, you'll end up having no idea where to proceed. You're supposed to follow the debris on the ocean floor, but if that doesn't catch your eye, or you go swimming in any other direction than the way you're supposed to go, well, you're gonna fucking drown. I mean, it's a bold way to start a stage that demands the player to think rationally about where they should go, but I wouldn't be surprised if a good deal of players turn this section into trial and error. You're not initially faced in the direction you're supposed to swim, so if you just push forward, well, you're gonna drown. I'm really split on this. I like that the stage puts this kind of pressure, but I do think the hint is a little too subtle. Once inside the sunken ship, the stage functions like those before it. Focused platforming with a clear direction forward. There's one time puzzle requiring the player to deactivate a furnace with 2 levers, and another puzzle that involves opening up part of the ship to let old sea dirt fall through. Besides these 2 instances, the player won't find themselves hitting any brick walls. But now the wreck of the Maria Doria, that's completely different. The wreck of the Maria Doria is easily the worst stage in the game, and quite possibly the worst stage in classic Tomb Raider. I love the stage's concept and atmosphere. Lara is tomb raiding in an upside down ship underwater. If this stage came along in a modern title, I really think the concept could be explored in an interesting way. Instead, the area becomes sprawling. Which is fine, except in order to move around, you need to work your way through a block puzzle. To 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 a... No, wait. A block puzzle. Oh, and you can just end up pushing blocks more than you need to if you say, have no idea where to go and you're just trying to explore the stage. You know what goes well with block puzzles? How about some PS1 jank? Now, using a bookcase to climb up, that makes sense in retrospect. Jumping up vent fans, I mean, okay, there's no other way to proceed. But when you have a very specific piece of level geometry, not highlighted in any way, shape, or form, act as a switch to an exit, then we've got some problems. Basically, in this portion of the ship, Lara has to descend down and pick up a circuit breaker. The portion of the geometry the circuit breaker is on is actually a switch that triggers a trap door. But let's just say, for argument, that you're in a firefight. Then you descend down to the bottom area and pick up the item triggering the trap door. Then you run over to press a switch highlighted on the wall across from you to drain some water in a room you passed by earlier. Then, to your surprise, the trapdoor has been shut. Now, you thought picking up the item triggered the door opening, and maybe the water draining switch you pressed just affected it. Okay, so it's a puzzle. So you press the switch again, thinking it'll open up the exit and refill the other room. Maybe you just need to devise another way to ascend the area. Imagine my surprise when the trapdoor was still shut. Well, shit. How do I ascend then? Do I head down? No, that's covered in glass. But there's literally no other way up. Did my game glitch? Am I stuck? Oh. Oh! The item wasn't the door trigger. This fucking square is! At least you had the courtesy to fucking highlight that shit in the last game, but this? This is the same fucking floor pattern! How would I know to walk here? The only way to avoid this scenario is if you know to press the switch first, then pick up the item, then exit before the door timer runs out. If you do not do the shit in that order, then fuck man, how would I know on my first time through that I'm just supposed to waltz over this specific piece of unhighlighted game geometry? There's nothing different about this piece of geometry. Just fuck you if you did things in the wrong order on your first go. So after you leave the bullshit room and get your circuit breaker, it's up to you to continue to push forward. Oh, and unless you just went backwards in the beginning, then you have no reference level for how many circuit breakers you need. This is similar to the Lost Valley approach, only not designed like a piece of shit. So once you know you need to find 3 of them, oh good, another fucking block. So you pull the block, you jump the things, push another fucking block. Were you not miserable enough already? How about 2 fucking sharks as soon as you enter the water? Gotta get the key, asshole! You grab the key, move another piece of shit, poorly designed mechanic that should not fucking exist, flip a switch, break out of the ship, not die to a fucking squid hidden in the cove, and wrap up the stage. God damn, fuck the Maria Doria! The living quarters is probably the best example demonstrating Tomb Raider 2's level of progression. You begin somewhere in the ship's hull, and end up in the living spaces, even finding an in-ship theater. This is something I really like about the level design of Tomb Raider 2. You start in one area, and often find yourself changing scenery as you progress forward. The pacing here is significantly better than the previous stage. The only thing obstructing the player's way forward here is some deviously placed jumps. The most devious of these being the jump from the furnace to the tear in the hull. By this point, the player has a healthy fear of fire, so asking him to stand near it to proceed is a nice way to hide the way forward in plain sight. I guess somewhere in the span of Lara's short swim, the ship managed to flip itself back to the upright position, because it's no longer upside down. The area following the living quarters is the deck, another sprawling area that loops Lara around the map in an efficient manner as soon as she finds the initial way to proceed. This stage is what also helped me understand Tomb Raider 2's level design philosophy. It's very easy to end up wandering around wondering what the next thing to do is, but Tomb Raider 2 is very smart about putting you where you need to be. It'll never move you to one section of the map, then ask you to do a task on the other end without some intermediate challenges in between. This is in stark contrast to the sprawling areas of Tomb Raider 1, where things could often be done in a varying amount of sequences. Tomb Raider 2 has a specific order of progression, and if you keep that in mind when exploring, it dramatically helps the way you navigate more open areas. If the level sends you to the bottom floor, then the next thing you need to do is right here. It's tempting to want to go off to another area in the map when the way forward isn't initially clear. A very viable thing to do before, but definitely not what you want to do here. You can so very easily end up running every direction across the map attempting to find the way forward. If you never played this stage, then try beating it when you have no idea where to go. Then again when you know exactly what to do. You'll want to slap yourself for missing so many obvious things. You get looped across every area of the ship once, and one area twice before closing out the stage with a fight against several flamethrower men. Once they're dispatched of, Lara finds the object of the cult's interest, the Seraph. All it does is open a door in the Tibetan monastery, but before we get there, we first have to go through the Tibetan foothills. The Tibetan foothills introduces another motor vehicle. Now the boat was solid control-wise, but the snowmobile... Oh, and there's some movable blocks blocking your path. Sure hope you didn't painstakingly line up that snowmobile for a jump before pushing those blocks, which you didn't know existed first. I mean, the level design is sensible and loops you around fine enough. It's just... by the time you get a grip on how to steer the thing, well, the level's over. The Barking Monastery introduces a new frenemy mechanic. Basically, you can have the monks aid you in the stage's combat by only gunning down the mobsters. This whole dynamic is fine on paper, but can still become a hassle since Lara still can't choose who she auto-targets. It's essentially why I don't even bother trying to save the monks. Choosing to shoot everyone like I did will result in the combat becoming immensely more difficult. Even if you anchor the monks, you can still let the group fight it out by running away when you see enemies first appear. What usually happens is that you'll either come across a group of mobsters first, or a group of monks. The opposite group of which you found usually spawns behind you, so the best way to go about combat is to let the groups duke it out, unless you're trying to save every monk, in which case you need to be far more proactive. The temple follows the sprawling area level design of the opera house and deck, looping you around to exactly where you need to be. There's room for a first timer to get lost, but if you know what to expect from Tomb Raider 2, this isn't likely. This time around, Lara is searching the area for wheels to open up a door to the catacombs. If Lara doesn't find this door first, then she has no idea that she needs 5 of them. It's this quirk that will likely make a first timer think they've completed a stage before they really have. The catacombs of Tylon and Ice Palace interlink with one another, so they may as well be one stage. There's a devious block puzzle in the first half that can leave a first timer stumped. I don't mind this use of the block here, although it is a little cheap since the only reason you would attempt moving it is because there's literally nothing else to try. The springboards also see their introduction here. Of the new platforming assets Tomb Raider 2 has added to the mix, the springboards are the most dangerous jank of them all. Imagine the surprise of a first timer when they run across this wood texture and are shot up like 50 feet in the air, likely breaking their legs since they didn't know what to expect. I mean, there has to be something special about the floor here because it's textured differently, but blasting Lara off is still certainly not what a new player will initially have in mind. Despite the jank, I actually quite like how they're utilized and the diversity it brings to the platforming. The use of the sloping platforms is also put to great use here, asking Lara to keep on her feet as she shoots the bell. The stage surprisingly ends with a sporadic boss fight with a giant yeti after recovering the Tylon in an ice fortress. This is also where I'll demonstrate the fix to Lara's auto-target range. If this were the original game, Lara would keep on the Yeti with pinpoint accuracy and cheesing it out wouldn't be a problem. This time the AI pulls itself away from Lara, and she loses track of it after it gets a certain distance away, actually forcing the player to confront the fight fairly. Or just keep luring the thing closer by entering and exiting the stage. Seriously guys, if you want Lara to fight fair, you can't leave a way to cheese out the AI. With the Tylon in hand, Lara returns to China and opens the door she came across earlier. As she approaches the dagger, she's plummeted into a series of traps reminiscent of the Atlantis stages in the first game. The Temple of Xian begins throwing out more time segments and lethal platform variants, as well as focusing the level design into an ascent upwards. When you're trying to beat the game without saving, this is easily one of the most intimidating stages to complete since there's so many areas to utterly fail. One wrong maneuver here and it's back to the start. This stage is a testament to the amount of variety the dev team could cram into one small stage. Going from a Chinese temple, to a ravine, to lava-filled rooms, to spider catacombs really helps the sense of progression. My favorite puzzle here is easily the ladder ascent when the player is asked to pull the 180 roll in the air in order to jump from ladder to ladder. Really, this stage takes advantage of Lara's full skill set. Land combat, water combat, the springboards, different traps, tougher gaps, and split-second decision making all make an appearance here. After Lara ascends out of the temple, she finds the cult leader has stabbed himself with a dagger. So she goes home and calls it a day since the mob boss realized he was out of his league. If only. Turns out impaling yourself with the thing turns you into a dragon, so to stop a world catastrophe, Lara pursues Bartoli into another dimension. I like that these games always introduce an element of the supernatural that Lara needs to face against. For a game grounded in more modernized tombs, the floating islands were a pleasant surprise. It's just a floating tomb up in some outcrops and who knows where. The way to progress is cleverly hidden around and the gaps Lara is asked to cross become far more lethal. It's a horrifying stage to complete sans saving when one misgap can end it all. This stage also highlights the different power weapon functions. It's easier to use the M16 on the floating guards when Lara can stand still, and the Uzis on the grounded one since Lara can maneuver around a little better. Although it doesn't have as much variety as the Temple of Xian, it still enforces a strong sense of progress as you descend deeper into the main temple. The combat sections begin getting brutal. Thankfully, the game does provide a method to cheese out the AI should you feel so inclined. At this point in Tomb Raider 1, Lara had power weapon ammo out the ass and could use any weapon without consequence. Here, neglecting to find the statue secrets, Lara still needs to be smart with her weapons despite having a few extra firearms. I was having to swap between guns to keep from using my pistols. Once Lara flips her way up some ladders and figures out the zipline is a fraud, she enters the dragon's lair. The Dragon's Lair is a short series of combat sections against the Guardian statues, the mobsters, and finally a fucking dragon! Yeah! This is a fucking Tomb Raider boss! If that fire touches you, you're fucking dead, so just unload and flip around. Yeah, Lara Croft murders a fucking dragon. This woman does not have a fuck to give. So she shoots it to death, rips that shit out of its stomach, and takes it home. Why? Because she just wanted the dagger. Save the world? Fucking consolation prize to this shit. A big day for doing whatever the hell we wanted. Time for some well-earned rest. Oh, wait. These assholes are trying to break into my house. See this shit ton of shotgun ammo? That means these guys are a fucking joke. I murdered a dragon today, and you're gonna try and assault me with a club? Fuck you! Fuck the plane you flew in on, fuck them shoes, fuck your socks, fuck your very faggot ass accent, fuck your yuck mouth teeth, fuck your hairpiece, fuck Guy Ritchie, fuck Prince Williams, and fuck the Queen! This is America! It's England. My president is black? Not for long. And my Lambo is blue, nigga! And if I catch you on the street again, I'm slapping the shit out of you! Get the fuck out of my house! Tomb Raider 2 is a far more polished version of its predecessor, once again taking our protagonists across the globe. The ancient tombs of old are replaced by modern structures that are interesting to explore. Our wisecracking treasure hunter has effectively been replaced with a protagonist in desperate need of some fucks to give. Not that she had any to begin with, but she certainly doesn't display any self-preserving tendencies. Honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. Lara herself is far more satisfying to control, and the level design fully facilitates Lara's skill set in a satisfying manner. It's an understatement to call Tomb Raider 2 an improvement. 19 years after its release, Tomb Raider 2 is still very satisfying to play. Though its movement mechanics haven't stood the test of time as well as some of its contemporaries, getting into the swing of things isn't as much of a hurdle as its predecessor. Far from it. The game is very much designed with Lara in mind, and it shows in every stage. The kinks are still there, but they're much, much harder to see.
Don't you think you've seen enough?